Sometimes life is messy. Have you ever wished you could refocus your mind, home, relationships, and work life? Join us as we use research-based information to make practical changes and simplify life. This is Life Simplified.
Welcome to Life Simplified, where we try to make life a little easier by turning research-based information into everyday life hacks. Today, we're going to continue our discussion on money spending habits and attitudes. So I hope that you've had a chance to go and listen to our Coin Confessions episode, where we give you the opportunity to take the Money Habitudes card game that's provided to us by the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. And so if you have listened to it, you will hopefully remember that we talked about how we were going to have some special guests with us today to dive into a little deeper our money habitudes. And so I think maybe our special guests may know a little bit more about our money habitudes than we do. That could be the case. So before we get started, I wanted to introduce our special guests.
Hello, I'm Curtis, the first victim, and also Amanda's husband.
I'm Wesley. I am Tiffany's husband and was bribed to be here, but I'm glad to be on my first ever podcast.
Hello, I'm Royce. I am Ashley's husband.
So thank you all so much for being here. As you heard, they said they may have been bribed a little bit, but they are happy to be here, and this is going to be a fun episode to do with them. So before we get started, I want to recap a little bit about the money habitudes and what that actually is. So as I mentioned a little bit before, it is the card game that's set up to let people understand their habits and attitudes towards money and how it's developed. So we talked about last time that it's developed through your family and how you were brought up. Another one is your life experiences, your environment that you're in, the culture that you're in, the media that you're surrounded with. And so those develop your money habitudes and how you actually spend your money. So we did also briefly talk about the different habitude types. So today we're going to be talking about advantages and challenges of those different money habitude types. I'm going to go through and highlight a couple advantages and a couple challenges of each of our different types of habitudes before we dive into some conversations about them. So we'll start off with security. So security, if you don't remember, is money helps you feel safe and in control. And so some advantages could be having a budget, financial goals and savings, and you shop wisely for value items. So some challenges for security would be save so much that there's no money for today's wants and needs, or you buy based on price when it isn't what you really want, or it won't hold up over time. Planning it helps you achieve goals. And so some advantages would be you set and accomplish goals. You buy items you really want that will retain value. Some challenges of planning would be you feel pressure to spend money in ways that don't fit into your budget. You find it hard to respond to new opportunities. So carefree, money isn't a priority. You just let life happen and spend as you want. And so some advantages would be you can jump on new opportunities and you don't feel pressured by others' expectations. Some challenges would be you feel trapped or obligated by being supported, or you lose track of money or possessions. Status, money helps you present a positive image. So some advantage to that would be you present a strong first impression and you make generous donations. Some challenges would be you create a false image of having wealth and you have no money saved for the unexpected expenses that occur. Spontaneous, money encourages you to enjoy the moment. So advantages for that would be enjoy adventures and the unexpected, or you may be able to quickly respond to opportunities. And some challenges of being spontaneous would spend even when you don't have money, go into debt to buy things that you don't need. And then the last one we're going to go over is giving. So that would be money helps you feel good by giving to other people. And so advantages would be have strong values and convictions, and also dependent upon by others. So some challenges would be disappointed if money or gifts are not accepted, and unrealistic expectations that others will give back when you need help. If you have not been able to take the Money Habitudes card game online, please feel free to send us an email and we will send you that link, and then you will get a large packet. It's about 20 pages long that explains all these different things and goes into more detail about it. So as we get started, I would like for everybody to kind of go around and share what your top dominant habitude is that you all found after playing the game.
So I was tied. Security and planning were like co-dominant habitudes for me.
So mine was planning by far was the most dominant.
I was in a three-way heat, but planning was also my majority with a strong security and giving for a tie in second.
So mine were planning and giving.
My dominant was planning.
My dominant was by far planning.
So it sounds like we're all similar. So do your spouses or do each of you all agree with what or each of us said that our dominant was? Is there something like sticks out like, yeah, that is either, we talked about advantages and disadvantages of each. Is that something that you all agree with for each other?
Yeah, I mean, ours is really similar, and I think that we make financial decisions pretty much the same, which can be good for not arguing, but can be difficult because neither one of us are really big risk takers. So we maybe don't open ourselves up to other opportunities because of that.
I agree with that. I feel like we spend a lot of time, because we're both planners, planning for what decision we want to make, but actually deciding what decision to make can be difficult, especially for me because my second is security. And so I don't want to have buyer's regret, right? And so I think that's probably one of our struggles with both being planning, because not one of us is really more of a risk taker than the other.
Well, my second was spontaneous, which I think kind of just cancels it out. But I had a lot more planning than I did spontaneous. But his second is not spontaneous. So while we're both planners, I think I also can pull that into, well, this is on sale, or this vacation is coming up. So while I'm planning for it, we're going to plan to spend our money. But while we're on vacation, then there may be an extra thing that I am willing to purchase that maybe he would like to wait on and plan for it a little better.
Yeah, so since I'm such a big planner, I drew a goose egg on spontaneous. So definitely losing some of the spur of the moment decisions from being such a planner.
Yeah, and full disclosure, so my second one is status, which is totally opposite of my security and planning that are tied together. So I don't really know how that factors in, but I definitely would agree that it's accurate because I do like nice things, even though I also want to plan and have security of money as well.
So it sounds like we differ a lot on our second dominant habitude. So thinking about money decisions, whether you're making them together or just everyday decisions, we've talked about those habits and those spending leaks before. What are some maybe challenges or benefits of having different second dominant habitudes?
I think a good example for me, and I'll use this because we kind of went through it on looking at upgrading vehicles, for example. We might agree on the same model of vehicle, but our trim packages could be different. I might be leaning towards a Lariat or a Platinum, and she's fine with the XL or the XLT.
Well, I mean, we're the same on planning and security. Security was my second one, so like having that nest egg sitting there that don't touch it. It's not drawing me any interest. It's not doing anything with it, but I like knowing it's there. Not very good at giving, not very spontaneous, and not very status driven either. So probably lacking in a few other areas.
Thinking back to the holiday season, when I think about how I have more of a status habitude and Wes does not, I am okay with spending extra on the name brand clothes and things. And I like to have nice things. I like to feel good about what I'm wearing or the purse I'm carrying. Or, I mean, I don't want to go where I'm going into debt for it. I buy things I can pay for and pay for them at that time. But I do like to have nicer things, and I will spend a little bit more. Whereas Wes wants more of like, let me get the deal. Like, I don't want to spend a lot, and I think gets a little sticker shock when it comes to different clothing. So
No, it's got to be a necessity or a need.
right,
If you don't need it, why you buy it?
you need clothes.
You don't need a expensive purse, do you?
I want the purse. So wants and needs. That's another podcast. Go look that one up in the file. But he will have to admit, I think, that I did splurge on some things for him, clothing wise, and you like them, right? Like, you can understand, like, sometimes it feels nice.
Well, I was surprised that my second was not security. I may or may not have played this game many years ago, and my first, second, and third were planning, security, and status, and not particularly in that order. But I expected, again, for security to at least be my first or my second, and it wasn't. But it is my husband's. It is his second, whereas mine was spontaneous. So I don't know what has changed over these years that I'm like, let's spend the money, but I'm going to plan for my spontaneity.
Well, I like that you brought up about like the vacations, because we talked about it a little bit. We're both planning. So if we go, my husband doesn't really like to go on vacations a lot. I'm the one that always plans them.
Me too, over here, like not thinking it's
Same.
necessary to plan
So
this.
maybe it's just us, we're planners, but I do plan it like a year in advance. And so I pick the place, and as my husband says, I have a plan for the plan, and then I try to get everybody to rally around the plan, where he just kind of shows up. And so he is a planner in some aspects of, like he mentioned, like buying a car and researching it and looking and trying to find the best deal. And I'm just like, that doesn't really matter, but I'm planning the plan of a vacation too.
So I think for me and Tiffany, on her third one was status. I didn't have any for status, but, we buy and have nice things, a nice house, nice vehicles, things like that. And maybe some of that is for her. I don't know. She can answer this in a minute. She likes people to see her in those things. For me, it's like I don't want people to view me like, oh, look at him in that fancy house or fancy car showing off his money. I just assume not be viewed in that way. So maybe that's why status is not that important to me, because I don't want people to look at me like he's just showboating, because I'm not a showboater.
You don't want to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
Yeah.
I probably look like I am, but I don't like it.
Yeah, we have nice things. I don't think that I like those things, though. When I think of status, for me, it's not, oh, look at me, I want to have the best thing, I want the attention from it, or I want to feel better than somebody else, because I don't like that. I think I just know what I like, and I do like to be unique. I do like to be unique because of who I am, not because I want people to see me standing out from other people. I just tend to, I can go in a place and be like, oh, I really love that thing, and I'm not trying to find something that's expensive or extravagant. That's just my taste, and it just happens, and I'm like, oh, of course it's that price. That would make perfect sense. So I don't really want it, because I'm kind of looking at, we have a sheet here, and it's, money helps you present a positive image with status, and there's one viewpoint wants to be accepted by fitting in, or one viewpoint wants to be acknowledged and stand out. And I think I just like to be myself. I just like to be who I am, and I like the uniqueness of that. And I'm not always unique, but I do enjoy that. But no, I don't want the attention. And I have had those same feelings that Wes shared. I don't want people to think that I or we think we're better than anybody, because I absolutely don't. And I don't want my things or my stuff to make anybody feel less than, ever.
Yeah, I think it's a guilt thing. Sometimes nice things make me feel a little guilty, maybe. Like, maybe I don't deserve this. I have it. Don't necessarily deserve it, but I have it.
I think that's a good different perspective to look at different money habitudes, because if you're not a status person, you may view somebody like, oh, they think that way, or what are they trying to prove, when really they're not. They're just appreciative of what they have and they enjoy things that they can afford. So that may not be for everyone. And I think that plays into, as what we talked about before, those advantages and those challenges, but how our habitudes are shaped. It's by our environment, by our life experiences, and how we grew up. So that really plays into, why we are the way we are. So one thing that I thought was interesting with ours is our giving. So my husband and I both had giving as our second, but we're different givers. So I'm a giver to, if your kid's doing a fundraiser, I'm buying it. Like I'm trying to help to do and I'm donating to different things. Where we talked about it a little bit, is like, well, I'm donating my time. Like I'm driving here, I'm doing the things. So we are giving, but we're giving in different ways. So I tried to be a little bit better about not buying all the things and all the fundraisers, just because I know sometimes that can just be a continuous cycle. So I am more mindful of that and trying to do a little bit better about it.
I think also the product of the work, what environment you're in. In my line of work, I'm approached a lot for sponsorships, giving, different opportunities, and sometimes I'll plan out, because I used to be inundated with those requests, and you hate to not give. And now that I know what my habitude is, at least in regards to giving, they're playing to one of my strengths, I guess you could say, but also one of my weaknesses, because I don't have enough capital funds to give to every cause. And so what I try to do is actually make a budget at the beginning of the year and allocate what I'm going to give to. And then also on the time aspect, because I've learned that, for the most part, it's easy to get a smaller donation if you're the one seeking the gift or the sponsorship. But sometimes the most valuable resource is the time, because I have a hard time finding volunteers in my line of work. But I don't have a hard time finding sponsors. But to get people to help you use the gifts that are given, that's a chore and really a challenge. And time is so precious that I think we overlook just what kind of gift that is.
We both had giving very far down on our list, and it made me feel bad. Even though we've talked about that no habitude is good or bad, I still felt bad about it, because I thought, well, does this mean I'm not a giving person at all? We're not giving. But when I looked through, I had a lot of sometimes. And I think that we are very specific givers, and we've got that plan. Shocking. We've got the plan of where we're going to give and what we're going to give. And I like that you said about the time, because I had not really thought about giving my time. I was just relating it financially, but giving my time and volunteering, then that is another something that would go in that giving category that I wasn't considering.
The only reason I mentioned time, just to throw this in, is that for those of us that are in the farming aspect of, our work histories and careers, one thing that we do a horrible job of when we make those budgets is that we don't value the time that we put into our operations. And so it's a hidden incurred cost, right? But somebody has to do that work, and there's value to your time. But a lot of family farms, for example, they don't think about what the value is if you had to hire someone to do exactly what you're doing. And it's easy to do, right? Because we don't really want to realize how much time we spend on a certain aspect or part of what we do. But if you apply that to it, there is value to your time, because you can't purchase more of it. And so you have to use it wisely.
Yeah, I do feel a little guilty on as far as giving goes. For me, it's more kind of like you said, time. My background, I am a farmer, and there's certain times during the season or certain days where, it's go time. You got to, and it might be a Saturday afternoon, every now and then Sundays, late night sometimes it's not. As far as time goes, I'm always kind of like, well, I better not, volunteer for this, because what if we got to do this work on the farm, and then it's going to put, my partner's in a bind if I'm not there, things like that. And, as far as money goes, I need to work on that. Definitely have room to improve there. But, money is hard to make. So, yeah, I'm kind of a little stingy maybe as far as giving goes, because I know what it took to make that money, and it goes a lot quicker than it comes in sometimes. So
Yeah, and so we both had 0 on giving, which means neither of us identified any "that's me" cards in that area. But like Ashley said, we both had several sometimes cards for giving, and I think that does matter because you can tell we do have giving personalities, but that's not that's not where we would go dominant for sure. And I think we are very specific. I'm probably a little more likely to give time, like volunteering to teach a class or lead a group, because that's sort of what I do every day anyway, so I feel comfortable in that arena. And money we're very specific with. Like, we do give, but we're very specific in how we give, what organizations. We want to make sure it's something that we feel strongly about and connected to. But it can be a little stingy when you look and there's 0 on there because you think, what am I doing? But I think it's good to dig deeper and to look at those sometimes cards and to think about why you got the results you did, and knowing that there's not bad or good, but it is information to know to make better decisions in the future.
yeah, I mean, I had probably half of them were in sometimes pile for me. So
and I had like 3/4.
That doesn't necessarily show up on the giving, yes or a no, but it's a sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think you do have to go a little bit deeper in those.
Yeah, and I think I'm glad y'all brought that up, because if our listeners are looking at results, they may be feeling the same way, like, what? I really thought I was, one and I'm not the other. That is a good point to dive into your results and actually look at the details and how many did you have in "that's me" or "that's not me" or "sometimes me," because you could just be leaning one way or the other, or it could just be the phase in life you're in, because somebody mentioned earlier, like, I took it years ago and these were mine, but now this is mine, right? So it could depend on where you're at. And I know with us, with the young child and talking about new vehicles and maybe building a house, like, we're planning and we're in the security mode, thinking about if we're going to make things work and how we're going to do it and be able to still to provide for our families. So I think it also depends on that as well.
And I think in giving too, it just occurred to me when you said that, our kids are high school, middle school, elementary school. The older ones are in a lot of activities, especially sports. And I think we feel like we're constantly giving our time and our resources to those things. So I think maybe it's just this phase that we have these obligations that are just readily for us that we're giving to, and so we're not thinking in other aspects right now.
The longer I've thought about it, and most of us are in the planning category, but in the security side, I think there are things, especially how the security card mentions, that if you're too secure or you plan too much, you could miss out on some opportunities to have an experience that you normally wouldn't, because that, to me, I equated that we're in our comfort zones and we like to stay in those comfort zones. And luckily, though, if you have a spouse that's a little different, they'll kind of challenge you to that, because I think I've changed in some ways and been more spontaneous in other. I think for example, vacation, we travel more now than I've ever traveled, unless it was work related. But, kind of remove that guilt of taking the time to spend, I think it was one of your podcasts on attitudes, to take time to invest in things that help you equate to a positive attitude. And if you do that, you're investing in your overall long-term well-being. It's easy to forget that sometimes, but the long game is that you're in a better spot to keep, the status that you want mentally. And I've noticed that, like I said, if we had to go back historically and compare to what you think you would score back then, the environment's changed. So it's interesting to compare those.
So that really leads me into our next question that we're going to talk about. So all of us are planning. And so do you all think you overuse, or has there been times that you've overused planning, and have you kind of reined it back, or has your spouse ever been like, let's figure this out a different way?
Well, I can talk about planning a little bit. It's kind of weird because through this test, I am considered a planner, but certain things I do not plan. Somebody has talked about vacations. Tiffany definitely plans vacations, dinner nights, date nights, all those things that, I just really don't think about. Don't necessarily not want to do them, but probably goes back to kids have a lot of things. Every night of the week is something. The uncertainty of work hours or needs there. But she is definitely planning those things where I'm just probably a little more on the spontaneous side. Yeah, let's go on let's go somewhere this weekend or something like that. But I drew a 0 on that also. So
You had one carefree. Maybe that's your carefree.
yeah.
It's a good balance that you all have figured out, because I'm sure when you all first got married, it wasn't that way, right? You probably didn't plan. Tiffany probably didn't plan the date nights and think about the things, and you didn't think about that. After you swooned Tiffany, you she decided she couldn't live without you and has to do all these things. But I think that's a good example of how you all balance each other out. And like we've mentioned before, it takes time to get into the groove of those things. And keep in mind, too, life could happen and throw it all off, and then you got to figure it out again. But again, this is a good tool to be able to use and do those things.
Well, I think we've learned each other, because I will plan those things. And like he said, it's not that he doesn't want to do those things. He wants to do those things with me. He's just not going to take the time to plan it out because his mind is on other types of work-related things or those type decisions. And I could get frustrated that he's not planning those things, but knowing that that is more of my realm and he's going to come along with me, it's easier for me to just be like, hey, I'd like to do this. I've got this plan. And he's like, okay. And that way I get what I want, but he doesn't have to feel the pressure or stress of planning those things. I think it works for us.
Yeah, you've kind of learned, certain times when you can plan, certain times when you can't plan. I try to work with her and do the best I can. And she understands. She's gotten better. She used to would get a little upset with me when maybe certain things came up with work. She's starting to understand that that's just part of it. We got to do what we got to do to get things done. But yeah, it's a team effort.
I would say that there are times when we both overplan, but just in different aspects of the overplanning. Like he's going to be thinking about something totally different as far as his planning goes than I am. But then, like you said, that does balance it out, that he can then bring my attention to this item and I can bring his attention to the vacation.
When you take a look at the planning side of things, at least for us, one thing I've noticed that we've started to pivot on in a positive way, and I think that's probably her strength and spontaneity, is we've made some smaller purchases that really simplify our daily schedule. Some things that will make the day more enjoyable, take out some of those mundane tasks. There's been 2 or 3 things. And then we've kind of changed some of our schedules on how we do things. Like we have a routine, right? And we know each of us is going to do that routine. Like, give you an example. Like when we put our son to bed at night, I don't expect it to be her job, for example, all the time. So we rotate. And that plan, we kind of go back and forth. And there's some days that'll change that. Since he was born, to me, that was the ultimate plan, is to figure out how to stage that out. Because both of our careers are very time intensive. They can take every bit of you. But I think it keeps us both at least at a medium average on being available not only for work, but for family. And then some of the direct, tangible purchases, I know we joke a lot. I tell her around Christmas time when the brown boxes start to arrive and the primitis really hits, that is not my planning side. But at the same time, we've really adopted like the click list, for example, for groceries. And I may not be spontaneous on a lot, but I'm a victim of casually browsing when I go shopping, because she tells me that all the time. I like to walk down all the aisles, just see what options are. I may not buy anything. I just want to see what's new. That's not her. She don't like to do that. And so we plan to disagree on some of that, but it's made, I think, our life more enjoyable because we maximize the time aspect of what we look forward to. And it lowers the stress aspect also, to know that some of those mundane tasks are taken care of.
So we're taking note that my purchases on a certain website are helping our lives.
Depends on what it is.
That's what I heard.
So when
I
those
heard
boxes
that they are
keep
helpful.
coming, I can revisit this and play this for you later on, is what you're saying.
Until somebody has to get rid of the box.
And I was thinking, as everybody was sharing, how this really goes back to our values. We've had some values episodes and work-life balance, and I very much value time with the people I care about and experiences. And so I think that lends itself to clearly I'm the one that's going to plan vacations and date nights because those are things I value. Also very much value security. So that's a high one. And I think I shared that in one of our coin confessions episode, that comes from my childhood and just personal experience there. And I think all of those are playing factors. But really, when we think about our money, where we're going to put it, where we're going to invest it, is all the things that really are of value to us.
You know, I kind of segue in with what you just said on giving is one of my stronger seconds, right? And so when I give, though, I kind of tie in the security and the planning because I like to give things that people will use. Mm-hmm. And so since majority of my family farms, for example, we buy tools, we buy things that I know they wouldn't necessarily buy themselves. Or we've added another aspect of my wife's strengths, which is the spontaneity, the experiences. And so we've tried to do some gifts where we give gift cards to go on experiences like movie nights or maybe different activities in a city that's not too far away. That way to encourage my other family members to kind of get out of their comfort zone and to have the memories. I think we've done a better job of that on planning because we try to make trips. You know, the running joke is I like to go to historical sites. Everybody else despises it, but when we plan a trip, I will say that we try to do it in a way that we hit the interest of each person that goes. And so I like the historical aspect of where we go. So we'll do that one day. After that, everybody has a sigh of relief. We can enjoy the rest of the vacation, for example. And so, but to me, though, it makes it an experience that everybody can look back on and say, hey, we did that. I had fun. And you appreciate the other people for, I guess, sweating through it, right? So
For 3 hours.
Yeah. So, but you know, I try to tie all those in, and I think about it. I say, well, that goes hand in hand with the giving because I like to give something that I know will not just be clutter that individual doesn't like. I have that satisfaction aspect of giving that I want to know that they at least got a benefit from it. And then we plan our gift giving budget too. You know, in the holidays, set it out, and we share notes on our phones, for example, and that's helped a lot. And that way, we're efficient in what we do.
So our last question, we always try to challenge ourselves or be better at each episode, right? Because we're learning. That's the purpose. Is there something about either your first two or your first three habitude that you're like, maybe this is something I can improve on. Maybe this is something I can change. Or maybe it's, I realize my spouse is this, maybe I need to not be so argumentative about it or be more open-minded to that. For me, I'm thinking about my husband's and thinking about his job. He is he does budgets and counts pennies and all the things. So then when he comes home with our plan to, maybe buy a new car, it's, well, here's this and here's the mileage and here's this and all these overwhelming details to me. And I'm like, why are we being over the top? Let's just go do it if we're going to do it. Let's just go look at it. And so I could be more understanding to the over budgetness that I feel like is happening.
Yeah, I'm guilty. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts like Wondery, American History Tellers, and I was a victim of spontaneity, and I made a subscription to the Rocket Money app, and that has only enabled my budgeting problem, I guess you could say, because now I can manage all my accounts in one area, and it has helped me prioritize my time to where it's easy to do that, but it's also helped me find ways to save. And in doing so, it's helped on other things. And she's right. I get a little overboard on it with the circumstances that I've had to deal with. I mean, I check everything. And then you throw into that I farm also. It's like a double whammy on budgeting and making things work. And she gets a lot of the farming side of it too. But the thing that, I'll say this, the thing about farming, how that balances me personally, is that those are things that we cannot control. Mother Nature and the good Lord is the ultimate control on a lot of those things. And it has made me balance the fact that I can't control every aspect. And that would probably be one of my negatives on planning, is I think I have the opportunity or the will to control things that I really don't. And it's a hard skill to really tie in because sometimes you just have to be carefree. And there can be a balance that's needed, and she provides me that, because she does tell me that, well, we're getting a little excessive here, the the year, model, and mileage, for example, when you're looking at that, they do matter on some things, but if you're buying it for end use, just get what will fit the moment and what you need rather than all the other items.
I think that I can be a little more understanding because my second was spontaneous and his spontaneous is very low on his list, but I can be more understanding of his personality and why his spontaneity is lower and why he likes to plan. And so just looking at this and seeing that, then I can maybe tone mine down a little bit, which, like I said, mine was planning and I kind of planned to be spontaneous, but rather than buying all those packages that show up on my door, I don't really know how they get there, but rather than continuing that, then I can pay more attention to what I'm doing, be more aware of that.
I think as far as Carefree, which I did have one on Carefree, but one of the things, person A, person B says gives up responsibility to someone else to make money decisions. I think we work together as far as that goes. She pays a lot of the, everyday household bills. Maybe I handle some of the bigger things, property tax, mortgage, stuff like that. But she knows I'm going to get the job done as far as getting those things paid. And I know that we're going to have electricity because she's taking care of that. So it's kind of a team effort on that. And, we put our money together, not saying that I don't have maybe a little small, something that I want to use money for. And she probably does the same, but 99% of it goes in the pot together and, we use it accordingly. And then also as far as, planning with money, sometimes that's tough when you have kids because, you got doctor bills, shoes, clothes, volleyball, basketball, all these things that you're not thinking about. Oh, well, you need $500 all of a sudden for a, volleyball fee or something that you really weren't planning on. So some of those things are kind of tough.
Yeah, I think for us, we're very similar in our responses for the most part. And like Wes said, we try to work together. We try to really even each other out in the small areas that there are differences, but we also, I've found for us, 99% of the time we are good on finances, and that 1% that we might struggle is because we stop communicating. And so I think the thing that we know about ourselves and each other is we just have to communicate. Because as long as we're open and honest with each other, we don't have issues. But when you start getting nervous about something or there's a big decision and you start holding back, I think that's when you set yourself up for struggles. So I think whether you're really similar or you have a lot of differences, just communicating and taking time to discuss it with one another openly and honestly makes all the difference for us.
So thank each of you all for joining us today. Hopefully you all learned something too. So our husbands were here. They got to experience our world of podcasting, but also dive a little bit deeper into our money habitudes. If you have not had the opportunity to take the money habitudes challenge online, send an email with the word money to our email address, lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com. And hopefully that will help you look at just overall what your money habits are, how you can improve, maybe what are some challenges or disadvantages, and seeing how your life experiences and your family, how you were brought up, your culture, environment, how all those things play into where you are in the moment or the season, as we've mentioned before. And our word for the year is awareness. So at least maybe it'll make you aware of what your habitude is and how you can improve or rein back some of those overuse of your habitudes. So thank you all so much for listening. This is Life Simplified.
Thanks for listening to Life Simplified. We are family and consumer sciences agents with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. Contact us at lifesimplifiedpodcast@gmail.com.